So this is going to be a short tutorial to remind you if you're still having trouble with how to use the object pronouns, le, la, le, which are direct object pronouns, or lui and leur, which are indirect object pronouns. So first let's talk about where they go, because regardless whether it's le, la, le, or lui or leur, or for that matter me, te, nous, and vous, which we also worked on, they all go in the same place in the sentence. So we have to talk about what do we do if there's one verb, if there's two verbs, or if it's passé composé. Generally, we always put them right before the verb. So let's say that we're talking about Pierre. We don't want to keep repeating Pierre's name, right? That's the whole reason why we use le, la, le, lui, or leur. So if I have the sentence, je vois Pierre, I see Pierre, and now I just want to say, I see him. We only have one verb in this sentence, voir, and so I'm going to replace Pierre with le, because it's masculine, and my sentence is going to be, je le vois. Le comes right before the verb because there's only one verb in the sentence, so that's the only place it can go, right before the verb. They never go at the end of the sentence. How do we make the sentence negative? How do you always make a sentence negative? You put ne and pas around the verb. The only thing different here is that your le, la, le, lui, leur has to be the closest thing to the verb. So the ne and pas is going to go actually around that in the verb. So we're going to end up with je ne le vois pas. We'll see how the ne and pas is still around the verb, but the le or la or lui or leur is still the closest thing to the verb. If we have two verbs, so now I have one verb conjugated and one that's the infinitive because it's the second verb. Je vais voir Pierre. I'm going to see Pierre. I'm still going to replace Pierre. Now I'm going to say I'm going to see him. When there are two verbs, the rule is always put the le, la, le, lui, leur before verb number two. So that goes before verb number two if there's two verbs. So we have je vais le voir before verb number two. In the negative, what do you do when there's two verbs? Ne and pas always goes around verb number one. This is regardless of having le, la, le, lui, or leur. Ne and pas always goes around verb number one if you have two verbs. So je ne vais pas, and then we don't have to change anything about the sentence. Le voir. Je ne vais pas le voir. I'm not going to see him. Passé composé. Some of you get a little bit confused about, well, how do I know that this isn't two different verbs? You have to recognize when it's passé composé. Keep in mind that passé composé is always going to be formed with avoir or être. If you see a form of avoir or être here, followed by another verb, you know that it's passé composé. You're not going to have avoir or être and then another verb if it's in the present tense and look something like the previous example. So if you have some form of avoir or être here, and another verb, it's the past form of it. This is passé composé. So, j'ai vu Pierre, I saw Pierre. Again, we want to replace Pierre and say, I saw him. What do we do if it's passé composé? We always put the le, la, le, lui, leur here before the entire passé composé. So remember that this, even though there's two parts, this counts as one whole verb. Just like in the first example here, what do we do when there's one verb? We put the le, la, le before verb number one. This counts as one verb. So, I saw him, je l'ai vu. Negative. How do you make a sentence negative in passé composé? You put the ne and pas around the avoir. This is not included. You put the ne and pas before and after avoir. Again, just like in the first example, the le, la, le, lui, leur has to stay the closest thing to the verb. So we end up with je ne l'ai pas vu. I didn't see him. The only extra thing we have to remember in passé composé with le, la, and le, not with lui and leur. Let's pretend that instead of Pierre, this was Sophie. Because Sophie is a girl, we would actually have to add an E here because this would not be le anymore, it would be la. And so we have to make that agreement. So Sophie is la here and here, and so we make agreement. This is only for le, la, and le. If you are doing lui and leur, you're going to do exactly the same rules we just did here. You put them in the same places. The only thing different is for passé composé, you'd never make this agreement by adding extra e's and s's with lui and leur. You only do that with le, la, le. Now the final question is, how do I know if I should use le, la, le or lui, leur? There's a list of verbs. There's a list of verbs right here that you can study, and these are the verbs that you use lui and leur with. Notice they all take a.